Joining us now on This Is the Day is Father Marc Fallon. He's the Executive Director of the Labor Guild. Thank you so much for being with us.
My privilege, really, Kevin.
Let's start off by just talking about the Labor Guild. Maybe give us a brief background of the Labor Guild itself.
In, if you don't mind going back to the Depression, there was a Vatican letter, an encyclical letter, 40 years after previous letters on the industrialization and the rights of workers, so through the 1930s. And there was an encouragement for workers to gather and to discuss their rights and responsibilities in the workplace. So as some of the labor schools and guilds were forming throughout the Northeast and the Midwest in the United States, of course, a lot of this was had the intervention of the Second World War. But Richard Cushing, at 1945 as Archbishop, that was like the first thing he did when the war abated, to form the Labor Guild. Yeah. So again, in the South End, we've had satellite locations, Quincy, Braintree, and Weymouth and elsewhere, Merrimack Valley. But the reality is 50,000 students over 75 years, tremendous first-class core of pro bono faculty, and very loyal members and executive board members. So obviously with the recent COVID protocols, we really needed to overnight switch to remote learning. Yeah. And it's just a testament to the commitment of everybody involved that we've made a transition to remote learning for quality labor education.
Yeah, and talk about that, if you could expand on that, Father, too, about the education, maybe some of the classes that you offer, some of the things that you offer for people.
We have arbitrators who will share their classes. One that's very popular is is the parliamentary procedure and public speaking. The way that Robert's Rules governs, any kind of community group that that gathers, and the stewards training are very, very popular, and so many of these can be just an initial entree, or there's intermediate or advanced, and it's absolutely true that we're a feeder for the 4 labor extension campuses in the UMass system.
Oh, great.
And we're very happy with that relationship. Sean O'Brien, of course, is a prominent with Teamsters International, but he's a former student of ours. And, Steve Tolman recently concluded his term with the Mass AFL-CIO, another former student. There are many of our former students are in the day-to-day conversation.
Talk about your role as executive director too, and what's kind of your vision throughout the Labor Guild that you'd like to have and sort of emanate throughout.
Well, as we're maintaining the curriculum for the courses that are offered online and remotely, one of the first things we learned is that we're human beings, and we need to gather in person. Yeah. The local labor community deserves tremendous credit for being really upfront about addiction treatment and confronting some of the substance abuse issues that are there. So we have an annual gathering, and we'll bring, John Christian and some of his group. Many of the local tradesmen, particularly in the building trades and others, they have contact persons for all their members for dealing. I mean, there's no question with the opioid problem that misapplication of the prescriptions, that the building trades members have this tremendous vulnerability to addiction. So it's very important. We see it as our role to be there to promote whether it's the scheduled workshop but even more so the ongoing conversation.
Yeah, we're just about out of time, but maybe if you could briefly talk about the importance of having the church involved in labor and being there for people.
Everybody goes to work.
Yeah, yeah.
And church teaching, of course, it really did develop through Rerum Novarum was published in 1891, but it did not come from a vacuum. There was a hearing what respective bishops were saying in Europe and in North America. And it's just so important that the rights of all workers be heard.
And if somebody's watching this, interested, maybe taking a class or whatever, finding out more, where would they go?
LaborGuild.com.
LaborGuild.com. Thank you so much, Father Fallon. We appreciate you being here.